real ballads with real themes and real emotion. I remember borrowing this cassette from a buddy of mine. Is It Just You Against the World? Or, for fuck's sake, 1992 had so much emotion and grit and power. Who is my group now? Like who can I count on? That song is still just super important to me. That got completely fucked by the grunge wave. This came out in 1991. I was just going to college, completely screwed by the timing of the situation, and it drives me up a fucking wall. Greatest musical generation of all time, 80s hard rock, glam metal, sleaze metal, hair metal. It's all here for you. Hey, I consider myself the guru. Welcome to episode number 13. In this week's episode, we are going to take another dive into the hair metal ballad. Last week, I ranked and analyzed the top 10 hair metal ballads of all time, ranking them from number 10 to number 1. Now, if you want to find out who finished in first place, you got to go check that episode out. Speaking of things that are on this channel, if you find any value or if you like what I'm talking about, if you love hair metal just as much as I do, hey, give this video a like. Please subscribe to the channel because I'm going to keep putting stuff out every week discussing the greatest musical generation of all time, 80s hard rock, glam metal, sleaze metal, hair metal. It's all here for you. Look, I came here to do two things, chew bubblegum and talk hair metal, and it looks like I'm almost out of bubblegum. So today's episode is gonna be about the hair metal ballads that didn't reach the top of the charts, but should have. The unknowns. Now there might be some bands in here that are really popular, but some of those great bands, some of those heavyweights that we all loved, had ballads that for one reason or another never went up the charts. So we're gonna have some bands like that, but then one of my favorite topics to talk about on this channel are the unknowns, the hair metal bands that could have and should have, but didn't. They had some amazing rock songs, but there are also some bands that had ballads that were as good as anything that the Poisons and the Cinderellas were putting out. So today, the hair metal ballads that could have and should have, but didn't. In 1983, a band formed that had two guys that formed a strong connection to one of the bigger bands, one of the bands that maybe started the hair metal genre. And those two guys were named Tony Cavazzo and Robert Sarzo. And yes, they were the brothers of Carlos Cavazzo and Rudy Sarzo from the band Quiet Riot, known for having the first heavy metal album of all time to go number 1 when 1983's Metal Health reached that number on the Billboard charts. Now, the name of their band was Hurricane, and they had a phenomenal lead singer named Kelly Hansen, who is still, in fact, touring with the band Foreigner, who really has no original members, but Kelly Hansen, a phenomenal vocalist, and this band started releasing albums in 1985 with their first album, Take What You Want. They then had 1988's Over the Edge, and then finally 1990's Slave to the Thrill. And that's the album that had a ballad on it called Don't Wanna Dream. Now, this song it never got a video. It wasn't released as a single. Hurricane did have a fairly big single with I'm On To You, a really powerful rock song. But Don't Wanna Dream is a song that could have, and should have raced up the charts. It's so emotional, so full of meaning. Don't Wanna Dream starts off with a really soft and melancholy acoustic intro. And then when it gets into the chorus, it almost has this nursery rhyme, almost biblical chorus where Kelly Hansen sings, "Now I lay me down to sleep, Pray the Lord my soul to keep. I don't want to dream tonight. And that chorus will just stick in your soul. This is such a catchy song. I don't know if it was record label politics. I mean, outside of I'm On to You, Hurricanes, the albums, I think they sold fairly well because they had that connection to Quiet Riot. They were known for being great musicians, but for whatever reason, the band never hit it big, but they should have with Don't Wanna Dream. Coming in at number 9 is a band that many people thought were gonna blow up. In fact, they almost did. When 1988's self-titled debut, Britney Fox, was released, it had a massive hit with Girls' School. It had a couple other singles released. In fact, I thought they had a great Slade cover called Goodbye to Jane that could have been a single. But there was a ballad on there called Save the Week. I'll be honest, I thought it was really weak. But that album went gold. In 1989, they released the follow-up, Boys in Heat. Fantastic album. Couple great ballads on there, including one that was released as a single, maybe a mid-tempo song called Dream On. But they were supposed to be on the Kiss Hot in the Shade tour. They got pulled from it in favor of Slaughter. The band starts to fragment. Dizzy Dean Davidson and Michael Kelly Smith get into a fight. The band shatters, breaks up. Well, they somehow found a singer that in my opinion, at least matched the power of Dean Davidson when they recruited Tommy Paris for their third album, Bite Down Hard. Now, Bite Down Hard was not a success. It came out in 1991, so, it was probably too late to the party to begin with. But I've said, and there's times where I can change my mind, I kind of fluctuate, but oftentimes I've said that Bite Down Hard is the best Britney Fox album. Now, there was 2 great ballads on that album, one called Over and Out, but then another phenomenal ballad called Look My Way. It almost starts off with a mid-tempo, soft strum of an electric guitar, but Tommy Paris's emotional vocals come in, and this thing just takes off for places that you never knew Britney Fox was gonna get to. So Look My Way is almost a straight ahead love song, but those work when the music and the vocalist meet at the same place. On this song, they do. The chorus is so emotional, so even if it sounds like a cliche topic, the song is anything but. Britney Fox, Look My Way, a song that deserved so much better, an album that deserved so much better. Coming in at number 8 is a band that is probably more famous for the career as a producer that their guitarist went on to establish. And that guitarist's name is Butch Walker, and his band's name was Southgang. Now, Southgang, again, one of those bands where their debut comes out in 1991, so it probably didn't have a shot. But that 1991 album, Tainted Angel, and 1992's Group Therapy, phenomenal albums. Butch Walker, an amazing guitar player. But I don't think the singer, Jesse Hart, gets enough credit for his vocals. Now, we found out later on in the bands that Butch Walker has fronted since then, particularly the phenomenal Marvelous 3 and Butch Walker's solo albums. Obviously, that guy's super talented, and the guy can sing. But the ballad, Love Ain't Enough, that came out on their 1991 debut, deserved so much better. And this is a song, it's a true power ballad because it's chock full of electric guitars, some screaming lines from Butch Walker that, these guitar melodies that soar into a chorus, and Jesse Hart's vocals, when he reaches those high notes in that chorus, when he's singing Love Ain't Enough, it's so catchy, it's so emotional, and And it's got this common theme where you have this, you have this special person, but you realize, I mean, it's just not meant to be, and that there's love there, but it's not going to be enough to get you past whatever troubles you have. And I think that's a theme that everybody can relate to. Lord knows I can. So Butch Walker, again, tremendous career as a producer. He's produced people like Pink and Avril Lavigne, but you shouldn't forget about that band Southgang, about their phenomenal singer Jesse Hart, and especially the ballad that comes in at number 8, Love Ain't Enough. Now, a couple videos ago on my YouTube channel, it was a video about 10 hair metal bands that could have and should have but didn't. I featured a band called Blue Tears. Now, Blue Tears is a band that, and I consider myself the guru, and this is a band that I had never even discovered until a few years ago when somebody had recommended a song called Rockin' with the Radio. Well, that song was on their 1990 self-titled debut album. And also on that album was a song called Dream of Me. This ballad is so emotional. It talks about a relationship from the point of view that two people are really far apart, and how they're trying to get through this separation. And I'm just gonna read you one of the stanzas, and this is the opening stanza, and it comes in so slow. Far away, oh, I can almost hear you calling out my name in the darkness. Say the way, it's a lonely road I followed, but girl, until tomorrow when I'll take you in my heart. I mean, that's so poetic. And somebody commented on one of my last videos that I sound, so I used to teach high school English. I taught English for the last 12 years. I'm not teaching this year. I'm living off basketball and coaching. I may go back into teaching. But anyway, somebody made this comment that you sound like a teacher when you're reading those lyrics. But man, one of the reasons that I taught English, it wasn't because I loved talking about nouns and verbs and adjectives. It's because I loved finding words and sentences and things that hit me. Something that would make the hairs stand up on your arm. And this is one of those albums and one of those songs that does it. Blue Tears did go on to release, man, they have more great ballads. They put out an album called The Innocent Ones in 2006, Mad, Bad, and Dangerous, and another album called Dancing on the Back Streets. And I know, so their singer who passed away, I think in 2009, Greg Fulkerson, and also I think he was their main songwriter, but their bass player, Mike Spears, has a YouTube channel, and all of that Blue Tears music is on there. Man, we missed out on this album in 1990, but we shouldn't have. Phenomenal band, phenomenal ballad. They come in at number 7 with Dream of Me. Coming in at number 6 is another band that there is no information on. I just wonder how some of these bands got signed and there was no promotion done. Now, I get it. Some of these record labels were really small, independent. It's not like they had a big budget, so, and hey, it bless those labels for doing what they did. And there's a lot of those small labels out now supporting bands, even though, being a record label is not exactly a lucrative business these days. But in 1992, which, for fuck's sake, 1992, I've said it before, I'll say it again, that year, so many great albums that got completely fucked by the grunge wave, and it drives me up a fucking wall. So, in 1992, the band Jesse Strange releases a self-titled album, and I think half the reason I even know who they are is because their lead singer, Grant Tibor, I think I might be pronouncing it wrong, Tibor, Tibor, Anyway, he's from North Dakota. Now, I live in Fargo, North Dakota. And if you know anything about North Dakota, it is so small that if anybody does anything of worthwhile, a worthwhile pursuit, like makes, a professional sports team or becomes, a movie star or something, that in North Dakota is a big deal. And Grant Tabor was in a band that signed a record deal, and he is, besides being from North Dakota, is a fucking phenomenal vocalist. And on that 1992 album, there is, man, well, first of all, there's some great rock songs. I'm gonna tell you right now, go listen to Coyote Morning and go listen to Weekend Tonight. But there's a ballad on there called The Last Goodbye. And it's a piano driven ballad, and it seems to be about, somebody who passed away from something that was unexpected, and Grant, the singer, is talking about, saying goodbye to this person, and it's gonna be forever. It's so emotional. The guy is legitimately a talented vocalist. Now, Jesse Strange did go on to release an album later on in the 2000s. I think it was the follow-up to that self-titled debut that just never got released. I have it on CD. I've tried to listen to it a couple times. It's not that it's bad, but you can just tell it didn't get, whatever money or production value was put into it. So go check out that Jesse Strange album, specifically that ballad, The Last Goodbye. It comes in at number 6. Coming in at number 5, and I probably could have put this at number 1, because if you've followed my channel, which has been in existence for about 2.5 months, you know that I am a huge Warrant fan and a huge Jani Lane fan. My biggest video on the channel was a tribute to Jani Lane called More Than Cherry Pie, My Journey with Jani Lane of Warrant. I've also done a breakdown and a ranking of all the Warrant albums with Jani Lane. That was my very first video. And if you've seen those videos, you know that I have a particular love for 1995's Ultraphobic. Now, my favorite Warrant album of all time is 1992's Dog Eat Dog. Phenomenal album. But I love everything that they put out. But 1995, even though it stood no chance, there was a song on Ultraphobic called Stronger Now. Now, again, if you know my history, I have 2 Warrant songs tattooed on my arm. I Saw Red and Stronger Now. And I got Stronger Now when I was going through a difficult period in my life. I had my heart broken by a girl a few years recent. That's where the I Saw Red tattoo came from. Stronger Now I got when I was trying to convince myself that everything was getting better when actually they were getting worse, and alcohol was starting to take over, kind of like what happened with Jani Lane. But Stronger Now is such that this song didn't go to number 1, that everybody should have been talking about Jani Lane and his songwriting abilities. It's poetry in motion, that song, and it was completely screwed by the timing of the situation. So I'm gonna read you one of my favorite lines from Stronger Now. I gave to you my love and my respect, but I could never make you love me back. I denied it so. I grew bitter watching you grow cold. My life became your prison, took its toll. I decided, like a bird that's trapped inside a gilded cage, it's hard to set it free. It hurts to watch it fly away. I mean, the guy had a way with words. I told somebody in an interview I did recently with my buddy Ian Scotto from the Battle Line podcast. I said, if Jani Lane's life hadn't been taken down by addiction, I could see him now writing ballads for country singers, real ballads with real themes and real emotion, and ballads that would go to the top of the charts. Alas, he never got that chance, but Stronger Now showed just what he was capable of, and it's obviously one of my favorite songs of all time, let alone ballads, for our purposes here, it comes in at number 5. Okay, for number 4 on our list, we're gonna go back to the dreaded fucking year of 1992, and we're gonna talk about a song on the album "Want Some" from Roxy Blue. Roxy Blue in this album is another album that was on one of my hair metal albums that could have and should have but didn't. And in particular, the ballad on this album called "Times Are Changing." Now, Roxy Blue was probably most famous for their guitar player, Sid Fletcher. He's a guitar virtuoso. I mean, a lot of people compared him to Eddie Van Halen, and you can hear that on that album. But on this ballad is where their singer, Todd Poole, whose gritty vocals, like, they're gritty, but yet it also has some range to it. And that's just something that not everybody had. It made "Times Are Changing" just really emotional. And you know, this is 1992. I was in my second year of college. Things were starting to go to shit. My grades were going to hell. I was starting to party too much. And I remember getting this CD and listening to this song and thinking, like what's happened? Like, I graduated high school a year ago. I thought I was going to be on top of the world, and what the hell's going on? So the message in "Times Are Changing" is so universal. It's something everybody can relate to. So Roxy Blue they put out a couple other albums, you know, some demo type stuff, an acoustic album. They did get back together. I think somebody in one of my videos said that it was everybody but Sid Fletcher. They put out another album in 2019 that I honestly haven't really listened to. I hope to give it a chance and see what I think of it. Haven't thus far. But coming in at 4, "Times Are Changing" from Roxy Blue. So I'll tell you this, on my last video about where I rank the top 10 hair metal ballads, and these are the ballads I was ranking, the ones that, hey, had done some time on the charts, maybe even been super big hits. And coming in at number 10 on that video was the ballad "When the Children Cry" by White Lion. Now, White Lion released 3 albums before things kind of went, or 4 albums before things kind of went to hell. 1985's "Fight to Survive," Pride from 1987 that had "When the Children Cry," Big Game from 1991 that kind of the cracks started to show. But then they came back with the phenomenal "Main Attraction" in 1991. And there was a ballad, well, there was a couple great ballads. There was one called "Till Death Do Us Part" that the first time I heard it, I remember thinking, this needs to be the wedding song of the 1990s. And in fact, my brother got married on my birthday, October 24th, 1998. And his wedding song was White Lion's "Till Death Do Us Part." Now, it's got this really melodic piano breakdown, but Mike Tramp's vocals, when that chorus hits, they just rise up and they just bring this flood of emotion. And you know, like when I think of ballads, sometimes I get to the point where I get tired of the "Oh babe, I love you, oh babe, I miss you." But and I'll give you an example. I got so sick of Firehouse's "Love of a Lifetime." Now, talk about a song that probably did become the wedding song of the 1990s. It's probably that song. But I got so sick of that, and I just felt like it was so cliche. But White Lion's "Till Death Do Us Part," you know, it was an original take on a love song. Mike Tramp has, you know, he has such a clean voice, but there is a point where some grit comes into it, just adds to the emotion. That was such a phenomenal album, "Main Attraction." And "Till Death Do Us Part" is a song that should have, you know, just kept White Lion going for years. It's such a shame that it didn't happen, but they left us with a phenomenal ballad, and it comes in at number 3. So I remember being on a church trip, and we were all at a mall, and I went into the music store, and I'd been reading about this band, Tuff, and their album "What Comes Around Goes Around" in in magazines like Metal Edge. Well, I found this cassette and bought it, and I had my little Walkman that we were this it was like a church trip. We went to Dallas for this big youth convention, but I listened to this album like nonstop for this entire week-long trip. And so I've just always had this affinity for the band Tuff. Tuff, probably, most famous for their singer Stevie Rochelle and the website Metal Sludge, but the music that they put out, especially on that debut album, but they put out another album called Religious Fix in 1995, and Stevie's been releasing and re-releasing Tuff stuff for all the years since. I mean, the guy is dedicated to this genre of music. But back to the ballad on that debut album. Now, you might think that I'm going to talk about I Hate Kissing You Goodbye. A very good ballad, was released as a single. In fact, made it onto, like number 3 on Dial MTV. There was another ballad on there called Wake Me Up that I really liked. But I really gravitated toward a song called So Many Seasons. So the song is about Stevie's brother and his father both died very early. And it's how he attempts to navigate life while, these two super important people are no longer around. And, you're always looking back and thinking what things would have been like if these tragedies hadn't happened. Well, when I was a little kid, so my parents got divorced when I was 4, and I never saw my dad again I just turned 51 yesterday, and I didn't see my dad again until 2 years ago. So I was 49 or 48, and I never heard from him, and I always wondered, what I went through a lot of addiction issues. Alcoholic and all sorts of stuff before I finally got my life straight. I went to Iraq in 2003, ended up, things fell apart for a while, but I quit drinking when I got home in 2004, and my life has become so much better. But I always wondered, what would things have changed if my father had stayed in my life, if he hadn't abandoned us. So it's maybe not the exact same thing that happened with Stevie and his dad and his brother, but I was related to wondering what my life would have been like without this super important piece, this piece that most kids count on having, and we didn't. So So Many Seasons, just a true, it's heartbreaking and inspiring and so emotional. And that song is a big reason that I've stayed just a huge Tuff fan, and I bought all the Tuff shit that Stevie sells on Metal Sludge, and that song is a big reason why, and that's why it comes in at number 2. And we are down to number 1, and you might think that's it, but I had to have a tie for number 1 because there were 2 songs that I just battled with, and I thought, what, just put them both at number 1. So I'm going to start off with the band Lillian Axe and a ballad off their debut album called Nobody Knows. Now, Lillian Axe is such... I did a complete video on their first 4 albums where I discussed each song and ranked the albums. And the ballad Nobody Knows, Ron Taylor's vocals they're just a revelation. The guy had so much emotion and grit and power. And Steve Blaze, their guitar player and songwriter, just a poet. And I, this is a band that I don't like saying hair metal, even though they kind of qualified. So I'm sure some people are like, Lillian Axe is not hair metal. Okay, but for my channel and for my purposes, you know, I'm gonna put him in the hair metal genre, but the guy had so much talent and could write words that were so far beyond what most hair metal bands were capable of. It's such an emotional song. Lillian Axe is such a phenomenal band. They put out some other great ballads, and there's still, Ron Taylor's not in the band, but they're still releasing albums and playing shows. So I just implore you to support that band however you can, whether it's seeing them live or buying their albums. And Nobody Knows, one of my favorite ballads of this genre or of any genre. So it is tied for number one with the band Taiketo. I was calling them, they were in one of my other videos, and I think I was calling them Taiketo. So I think it's Taiketo, my bad. Sorry guys in Taiketo. But Taiketo put out an album in 1991, their debut album, that has a ballad on it called Standing Alone. It was so great, they actually put it on their second album in 1994 called Strength in Numbers, thinking that, maybe because it didn't hit the first time, it would hit the second time. Well, it didn't hit then, but the song is so emotional, and like, this come out in 1991. I was just going to college. In fact, I remember borrowing this cassette from a buddy of mine in the dorms and hearing this song. And you're starting to spread your wings, and you're out on your own, and you've left all your high school friends, and you're wondering, like, okay, who is my group now? Like who can I count on? And things are just so different, and I just gravitated to that message. And Taiketo was that first album, almost it almost had some hits, but it just didn't quite have enough. Probably, again, like so many albums, a little bit late to the party, but that song has stuck with me through all those years, and its message of just trying to figure out who you are and where you belong. And so that song is still just super important to me. So I did cover a little bit of Taiketo. I did read a verse of theirs in one of my previous videos. So I'm going to read you a different line that will kind of help you get the meaning behind this song. It comes right after the chorus. You can't keep it all inside. I need someone else to stand with me by my side. Give me something to fight, something to hold on to. I just don't want to be standing alone. I mean, man, who can't relate to that? Who can't relate to feeling like, is it just you against the world, or who else has your back? So, phenomenal song. I've loved it since I heard it. It's tied for number one with Lillian Axe's Nobody Knows. Hey, here's 11 ballads that, obviously if you're a hair metal fan, if you're into finding the underground hair metal bands, you probably know of some of these. But if you're a casual hair metal fan and you like the big dogs, you like the Cinderellas, the Poisons, and all those, hey, if you love those ballads like Every Rose Has Its Thorn, like Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone, hell, like Warrant's Heaven, hey, here are some songs that I think, you may like almost as much as those big ones, and maybe something that will become a new favorite. So that wraps up episode number 13. Hey, I appreciate anybody who takes some time and watches even a couple seconds of a video that I put out. I really do. Until next week, episode number 14. My name's Anthony. They call me the Guru. Take care.